The space race. The space race refers to the 20th century competition between two Cold War rivals, the Soviet Union and the United States, for supremacy in spaceflight capability that lasts between 1957 to 1975. It supposed a parallel effort between both countries to explore the outer space with artificial satellites, to send humans to the space, and to pose a human being on the moon. It had its origins in the missile-based nuclear arms race between the two nations that occurred following World War II, aided by captured German missile technology and personnel from the aggregate program. The technological superiority required for such a supremacy was seen as necessary for national security and symbolic of ideological superiority. Space race began on August 2, 1955, when both countries decided to announce that they will be launching satellites into orbit. The Soviet Union responded to the US announcement 4 days earlier of intent to launch artificial satellites for the International Geophysical Year by declaring they will also launch a satellite in the near future. The Soviet Union beat the US to this with the October 4, 1957 orbiting of the Sputnik 1, and then they launched another satellite, Sputnik 2. In response to the Sputnik, United States will make a huge effort to recover their technology supremacy. This reaction is known by the Sputnik crisis. Almost 4 months after the Sputnik went to the space, the United States managed to launch their first satellite, the Explorer 1. After a long period of more satellites being sent to the space, it was about to start another remarkable achievement, and it will go again for the Soviets. The first man in space, in April 1961, cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first person to orbit the Earth, traveling in the spacecraft Vostok 1. The lagging US launched their Freedom 7 3 weeks later, and astronaut Alan Shepard became the first American in space. The Americans were embarrassed at being behind the Soviet Union, and on May 25, 1961, President John F. Kennedy made a bold claim to Congress that America will be the first to land a man on the moon, and they will do it before the end of the decade. The Apollo program was launched. NASA now had an increase in its budget to achieve its daunting goal of putting America on the moon first, and by the end of the decade, as well as the Apollo program, it launched the Gemini program, which will develop the technology needed for the former. Gemini will see the first American, Ed White, to walk in space. Gemini will also see the first docking of 2 spacecraft together in Earth's orbit. After many test flights, training, and experiments resulting with various launching failures, the Apollo 11 spacecraft was launched into space on July 16, 1969. On board were the US astronauts Neil Armstrong, Edwin Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins. On July 20, 1969, the Eagle had landed on the moon's surface. Neil Armstrong stepped outside, becoming the first man to walk on the moon. He will say those famous words.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
By landing on the moon first and Soviet lunar landing attempts failing between 1969 and 1972, America had won the space race. And that's how the space race conflict came to an end.